Hello and welcome to Louisville Focus, a show. Well, our mission is this, to show you how Metro government works and how you can jump in and help Metro government make our city a happier, healthier place. With me now is our first guest here. She is the Executive Director for the Office of Sustainability. She is Sumeda Rao. Sumeda, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
You know, I hear the word sustainability a lot, but I'm not sure exactly if I had to define it, I could do it. So what is your elevator speech when people ask you, what do you do in the Office of Sustainability?
Yes, so we are committed to creating a climate responsible and climate resilient Louisville. And when you talk about what climate responsibility or sustainable development is, the way that we define it, the textbook definition is that it's a triple bottom line focus. So when you think about business as usual, you're thinking about profit. But when you talk about sustainable development, you're talking about people, planet, and profit, or the three E's, which are economy, equity, and environment. So some alliterations there to make it easy, but basically the message is that we want to continue to do development, continue to be prosperous as a society, but make sure that we're not creating environmental harm and that we're keeping people in mind while doing it.
So what I hear there, Sumeda, I hear healthier a lot, yes, which I love to hear. So maybe you can tell me a little bit more about, detail maybe an initiative or two that people could really understand and say, oh, that's what you're talking about.
Absolutely. So a lot of our focus at the office tends to be around clean energy. And the reason for that is that we do have a lot of, we see that climate change is impacting the city in terms of rising temperatures, increasing urban heat, things that are ultimately impacting people's health because, it's becoming harder for people to be outdoors, the air pollution issues getting worse. So changing our energy source is a big part of that solution. And one of the ways that we do that is through programs like our Solarize program, where we basically help procure solar panels or connect anybody who wants to go solar with a vetted installer that the city vets, and we negotiate a wholesale discount for everybody. So it just makes it cheaper to get solar panels on your home, and it's a way for people to participate in supporting more clean energy and clean energy jobs in the area.
Sumeda, we hear a lot about, growth and making sure that Louisville grows, but you want it to grow in a healthy way. So
exactly.
How closely do you work with, like, let's say, the Department of Economic Development?
Yeah, so we do work with them pretty closely. We rely on their expertise a lot. And, they have an excellent program called the Metro Go Green Business Loans, where they give businesses small loans for investing in energy efficiency and other green technologies. But the exciting thing is we also just this is the first day of our new green economy analyst joining our team. So now we have a new position who's going to really help strengthen that collaboration and make sure that we're really in sync with the economic development plans of the city.
So for someone who is watching Louisville Focus now, and they say, okay, how can I help? So if you were to talk to members of the community like myself, and I say, okay, sustainability, I like the way it sounds, I want to make our city healthier too, what would you suggest?
So there's lots of ways to get involved. One of the easiest ways is to follow us on social media and subscribe to our newsletter. We're at louisvilleky.gov/sustainability. And if we're doing public meetings or surveys where we're asking for people's input on what we want to do with the future of the city, that's a great way for people to jump in with their ideas and get involved. We also share a lot of events from our partners like the Air Pollution Control District and Brightside and tree planting organizations. So if you want to go volunteer, spend a day doing something for the environment, that's another great way to get involved as well.
Whenever I get a big cheese like yourself, an executive director, I always want to ask you, okay, what do you see in the future for your office that excites you? What do you see that may be happening, or maybe it's currently now being worked on, that really excites you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm really excited about, starting to look at sustainability as a lens through which you see everything else. So I think sometimes it tends to get a little siloed and be its own little area of focus. But then what we're trying to do now and what we're hoping to do more of in the future is to basically integrate sustainability into all of the mayor's priorities. So whether it's housing or economic development or safe and healthy streets, there's a way to do all of those things while making sustainability a priority. It doesn't have to be one or the other. So those collaborations and looking at it through that lens is going to open up a lot of opportunities.
So there's been so much focus on sustainability, but you can't do it yourself. Okay, you seem to be pretty excited about the direction we're moving, and probably really excited about a recent grant I've heard about. So tell me about the new grant.
Yes, so we just recently received a very exciting grant. So it's a $1 million grant from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, and it is to do a regional climate action plan. So this is not just Jefferson County, but this is Jefferson County plus 10 surrounding counties in both Kentucky and Indiana. It's the entire metropolitan statistical area. And it requires us to do all of this great community engagement and get a lot of feedback on how we're going to actually meet our emissions reductions goals. And then that qualifies us to apply for up to $500 million in implementation grants. So for the first time, not only are we doing a planning process, but we actually have a way to implement those plans at the end of this. So it's a really exciting time, and we're doing a public survey, and we're going to have public community meetings, and information for all that is available on our website. But that's a great way for people to get involved in this exciting initiative and think about where you want to see the region in 5 to 10 years.
I love when you say region, because that tells me this not only positively impacts the city of Louisville, but the state of Kentucky and maybe beyond as well, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
You're the perfect person for this job because your passion for sustainability and all that it entails is really obvious. Can we make that contagious, Sumeda? Can we make it, you know?
I hope so, yeah.
I hope so as well. The mission of Louisville Focus is to make Louisville, or actually explain how Louisville can become more desirable, a place where you're happy to live. And a big part of that is equity. With me now is Gretchen Hunt. She is the director for the Office for Women here with Louisville Metro Government. First of all, welcome to the show, Gretchen.
Thank you so much, John. How are you?
I am well. Your resume, very, very impressive. But you're working now in an office that you're very passionate about the mission. Tell us a little bit about it.
I am. So, when Mayor Greenberg elevated the Office for Women in the Office of Equity to the mayor's office, it was a really great statement of us belonging in the work of this administration. So first of all, just really grateful for him for doing that. So I'm very excited to be in the center of the administration doing this work. Our office is dedicated to raising the status of women and gender diverse individuals, people who may be non-binary, face a lot of the same struggles that women face. And what we envision is a Louisville where gender equity is the norm. So the reason I say that is that you hear Office for Women, you think it just serves people like me and not you. But we also push for things like paid parental leave, which help dads. So we envision a Louisville that's more equitable for all.
Yeah, in my brief research with the Office for Women, I'm amazed about how much you do. And, equity is a big word, but it goes way beyond that. Okay, so let's get specific here, if you don't mind. Let's talk about your ambassador program, because I think it's pretty exciting. I know you're proud of it, yes.
Yeah, so first of all, we do nothing alone, right? So government works with sometimes few resources, but we have great impact. The only way we have great impact is we partner with community and with other nonprofits in the community. So nothing I do is alone. It's with all of those and my colleagues in the Office of Equity. The ambassador we're in our second year. We have 26 folks who are in this class. They are women and gender diverse individuals from across the city. I like to say from Middletown to California neighborhood or Smoketown. And they are focused on building up their own individual leadership skills, their collective leadership capacity, and their engagement. They are rearing to go and be engaged and learn how to together uplift women in this city.
So it's not just about equity, it's also encouraging women and other groups that you mentioned. It's also encouraging them to put some skin in the game and get involved, right? To achieve at a higher level, right?
Absolutely, and this helps raise all of Louisville. For example, we have people who were in last year's class who have scaled their businesses. We have people who have gotten promotions in the workplace, a little bit because they had other women lift up mirrors to them and say, you can do this, you can stretch. And so I really think it's a good strategy for this city, not just to engage and build up trust with government, but also to grow economically, because we're seeing those impacts in all these women.
So before I move on from this ambassador program, if there's someone watching now and they say, wow, I'd like to get involved, I'd like to learn more, where can they go, Gretchen?
So they can go to the Office for Women website, and I don't have that memorized right now, but if you look at Louisville government or you Google Office for Women, you'll find us. The next year's class applications open up in the fall, but we had such interest this time. We had 5 times the number of applicants for the spots, so we opened up another day immersive. So we really want to say yes to folks, but to me it just speaks to the desire of women in this community to be seen and heard and be part of the solution.
Congratulations. It sounds to me like you're accomplishing the mission. You're moving forward. All right, speaking of moving forward, you had mentioned to me, you said, look, we're one of the select cities that actually has an office for women. With that being said, you're getting international recognition, perhaps a little bit of a hub, a partnership. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so my colleague Amos Cesar-Mana, who's the director of the Office of Immigrant Affairs, connected us with a global network called Change, City Hub and Network for Gender Equity. And it is a network of cities because cities are where innovation happens. It's where most things impact women most directly. And so this is a coalition of 13 cities throughout the world. And I mentioned to you, I know you're an Ali fan and boxing fan, that we really are punching above our weight class here because Louisville was invited to join this network. And we are a smaller city in size compared to London and Tokyo and Melbourne, Australia, Barcelona, Spain, Mexico City, big cities doing great work. But they looked at Louisville and saw what we were doing on gender equity and they said, will you join? And that's really exciting.
That's a testament to you, a tribute to you.
It's
Very
really
nice.
all of us. It's really all of us working together.
Okay, you mentioned Muhammad. He was a guy who was really about, diversity, inclusiveness. That's what he was all about. And you are doing, work to me that makes Louisvillians proud. If there's someone who says, look, I manage a business, I want to make sure that I'm operating in the right way. I want to pay attention to the rules and maybe even expand my workforce in ways they weren't thinking of before. Do you have seminars, or how can people learn more?
We do. We partnered with a colleague in economic development, Beth Sarkar, who came up with sort of a one-pager for businesses. So businesses can reach out to us and say, hey, I want to attract more women, more diverse women, and keep them in the workplace. How can I do that? So we'll consult on policies. We'll talk to you about culture change. And that's all for free. So it's free consulting, and we're happy to partner.
So what do you see in the horizon for the Office for Women? Realizing, of course, you've got plenty going on. We've just touched upon a few of the things. But with that being said, what do you see moving forward for Louisville and for your office?
Absolutely. So I love the Growing Louisville Together report, the Mayor's Strategic Plan.
Unbelievable, really. Yes.
And we were really excited to be partner at the table to look at some gender equity parts of that. We want to bring more women into the city. We want to make sure that we're growing population growth. So I really see that the next stage of the Office for Women is spreading out across government and just impacting the way we're planning parks and the way we're planning businesses and integrating gender equity into all those aspects.
I'd like to think of Louisville as a very progressive town. With that being said, Office for Women can help move that agenda forward. And Mayor Greenberg is very progressive himself, which I love. You had said that you're one of the few Office for Women in a lot of different cities. It's an honor, isn't it? Do you consider Louisville a little bit, I'm not going to say superior is the word, let's just say we're more focused on things like gender equity?
I do think so. And this office was created in 1991. The mayor was the first intern back then. So Louisville was definitely ahead of the curve there. But the sustained attention to it and elevating it to the mayor's office really, I think, has given it that imprimatur of the administration that this is important and that we want to promote this value across government and that it helps everybody. It's not just about women. Women are the bedrock and the foundation of our community, but it really impacts everyone.
Gretchen, when I opened up the interview, I talked about the fact that you have a very impressive resume. You're an attorney. You've been in this field for quite some time, very passionate about it. So as you take a little bit of an overview of Louisville, okay, what do you see, positives and negatives? Give me the strengths and perhaps the weaknesses.
So I think our strength is our people. We have tremendous engaged people. People have a sense of place. They have a sense of community, from folks at Play Cousins Collective to folks at La Casita Center, all those nonprofits in between. We have a strong nonprofit culture. We have a strong culture of philanthropy and looking towards each other. Our area of opportunity is that we still have income disparity. We still have the legacy of racism that continues. And so I think I would look at those as opportunities for growth, that we can look and partner with community to create those solutions to move forward. But what I love about Louisville, the reason I came back here and stayed here and raising my kids here is that we do have this strong, rich, diverse community. Even when we have historical legacies that have pushed us apart, we have a lot that pulls us together.
So Gretchen, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And if you'd like to get in touch with Gretchen in her office and maybe hear more about some of the things they're doing, their mission, yes, indeed, you can do that. Just look there on your screen and you will see all of her contact information. As we all know, February is the month for Black History Month. This year, 2024, the emphasis is on African Americans who've influenced American art. And this gentleman has certainly done that. He is Mr. John Cherry, and he is a Pulitzer winning photographer. Well, whenever you say Pulitzer winning, I mean, it has some extra emphasis to it, a little more clout. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
I am glad that you are here. I had a brief conversation with you when you came in the room, and I said to me, there's photographs, images, buildings, whatever the case may be, and then there's art. Your photographs make me feel something. When did you realize you had that eye?
That was something that was really apparent to me, I think, whenever I was younger, but then I fell out of the practice of photography. And just to run it back to what you said about feeling something, whenever you look at these photographs, one of the most influential voices in photography to me is a woman named Sarah Lean. She was an editor for National Geographic for a very long time, and she now runs the Visual Thinking Collective, and is just a powerful voice. And she told me one time that the most impactful photographs to her are ones where she can feel what the photographer was feeling in the moment that they took the photo. And so it's probably the biggest compliment that you can give me, is that you feel something from those photos. So thank you for that.
Yeah, there were photographs of natural disasters, the floods in Western Kentucky. I saw some COVID images, and I felt the pain in many of these. And sometimes you were at events where I felt the jubilation, I felt the joy. So you are very talented. Tell me though, is the goal sometimes, do you want to remain biased, or do you want to be neutral so that whoever is looking at the photographs can decide for themselves? Or is it one of those things you want to influence what they're looking at?
I think that, it's an interesting answer to that question, because journalists are required to maintain some semblance of objectivity. That you're not affected by the subjects that you're photographing and the people that you're photographing or you're reporting on. You feel very neutral about them. But I think that is impossible. And I think that the practice of maintaining that neutrality, as noble as it is, isn't always very truthful. And so I don't reject that I have certain opinions about things. But I've always had this talent, I think, since I was a kid, that I can argue for or against anything. I can play devil's advocate for any position. So I try to look at people, even if I don't agree with them, with empathy, and know that whatever is happening happened for a reason, and here are the reasons that led up to it. Even in a natural disaster, recognizing just the true power of Mother Nature, and sometimes even man's interference with that to make it more chaotic or more out of season. I think I just try to look at things with the lens of the reality of the situation without having my own skew on it.
You've worked for some very prominent publications, Vanity Fair, you work for Getty Images, The New Yorker, we can go on and on. Your images have been published everywhere. The Pulitzer Prize winning photograph, why was that one elevated? Why was it respected so much? What do you think the reason is that one received so many accolades?
So that photograph was a part of a collection of images that was a team submission for the Pulitzers. And that photograph in particular was the opener for this team submission. And we were awarded the Pulitzer for comprehensive coverage of January 6th, and it was unflinching. It was a difficult day, that there were a lot of members of the media that were assaulted, that are still dealing with PTSD from how traumatic an experience that was. And there was a lot of incredible reporting and work that was done, and it just so happened that our team provided some of the most comprehensive coverage of all of that. And I really wish, I have an interesting relationship with the Pulitzer Prize, understanding that it's a massive award and it's this huge accolade, and it's something that I think every journalist aspires to want. At the time, I was only 5 months into my career, so I didn't even really know what a Pulitzer was. It's something that I feel a lot of reverence for, and a lot of respect and honor for the position of having this attached to my name. And it's not very often that we're rewarded for our trauma, but it's something that I wish I could share and spread with more people, because there was a lot of incredible work that was done that day by our colleagues.
It sounds to me like, John, it takes an amount of courage to do what you do, because it can be a natural disaster where you could possibly be in peril. And certainly January 6th was one of those instances where, hey, there is some serious violence going on here. You mentioned PTSD and other things that people have suffered from. Did you feel uncomfortable in that situation or maybe other situations where you go, you know, I'm trying to remain professional, but I'm a little nervous?
Yeah, January 6th was it was one of the scariest days that I can remember ever experiencing. It was just exceptionally violent. And for me personally, it was looking around this crowd of people. It was like every racist person that I had ever ran into in my life was represented there all at once. The way that people were looking at me, I was grabbed onto a couple of times, spit on, coughed on, things like that. And it wasn't pretty. And at the same time, feeling fearful was not necessarily a useful emotion to feel during the time while I was trying to do this job. Still having the soundness of mind to recognize, like, okay, it's getting a little dangerous over here. Maybe I should go over there. Or this situation is becoming so escalated that maybe I should step back a little bit. Everyone that I've talked to about January 6th all wishes they had shot it differently, including myself, even Pulitzer considering.
What would you have done?
Looking back at it, I don't think I would have really done anything differently, but there are definitely times where I'll look at photographs and think like, oh, I should have gone inside. I never went inside the building. I should have gone inside.
I'm thankful you didn't, John. I mean, you talk about, uplifting the danger level. That would have done it. So I'm glad you did not. John, you're a photographer that is so accomplished, an artist, I should say, is so accomplished. You could live anywhere in the country that you want. You choose to live here. You shot a lot of the scenes from the Breonna Taylor incident, and I think I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that. So, Breonna Taylor, how did it impact you? Did Louisville learn anything from that?
So just to start from the beginning, I was not a photojournalist before May 28th, 2020. I was unemployed, just recently lost a job. I was going through a really bad breakup, and I was relatively alone, and the pandemic had just hit, and it's kind of hard to remember now that everything's opened back up, and all of the the COVID wards have taken down all their plastic. But it was a really scary time, and I remember in January, whenever I saw Ahmaud Arbery killed over and over and over again on TV, that I was pretty upset. I was angry, and then hearing about Breonna Taylor on March 13th or March 14th, and then wondering what happened to that case, feeling like it was swept under the rug. And that also angered me. And then watching George Floyd be murdered over and over and over again on May 25th of 2020, I felt like there was no other place for me to go. I didn't feel like I was safe in my home. I didn't feel like I was safe running through my neighborhood. I didn't feel like I was safe, really to drive a car. I felt very much backed in a corner. And so whenever the protests came to Louisville, just outside of the doors of this building on May 28th, one of my best friends, actually my best friend, came to my house and told me that there was something big happening downtown and that we should go and check it out. And then he reminded me, he was like, hey, you have that camera, you should bring it with you. And at the time, that was the farthest thing from my mind, was bringing this camera with me. So I'm glad that he encouraged me to do that, because that was the start of a long stretch of self-assignments, what I thought I didn't even realize was photojournalism. I just wanted to go out and do something. I wanted to contribute to something, to the visual history of this movement, just to see it with my own eyes, to do something to maybe help keep the police accountable, to humanize and show, that the protesters and the people that are involved here aren't like thugs and aren't like violent people. Whatever it was at the time, I felt very called to do it. And my community was very encouraging of that. I was completely unpaid. Like I mentioned before, I was unemployed. But pretty soon after I started photographing, people were leaving food on my porch, or like buying me gas cards. Or, I had a friend get a hold of my Venmo account and spread it around. And so people were sending me money and donating body armor. It got to the certain point where I was like a crowd-funded photojournalist, citizen photojournalist.
That speaks to your talent. They recognized that and they wanted you on the scene, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think that sounds about right.
Wow.
But, and then I look back at that and look back at the rest of your question about, why Louisville. It's things like that. It's factors like that that keep me wanting to stay here. It's the amount of support that I have in my community, and how much I feel like I owe, not in a negative way, but just the ways in which I've been granted the ability to put my work on a national stage, on a global stage, that I have trust from people that can allow me to come back to Louisville and share the gifts that I've learned on the road. here, I mean, it feels like a no-brainer to me to not just stay here, but also to share the resources that I have access to in the very special and privileged position that I'm in.
John, let's talk a little bit about your peers, local art. There's a lot of local artists who would like to, experience your level of success. With that being said, what do you see here? I think our arts community is to me, it's very vibrant. But you're an artist. What do you see?
I see, I'm a problem solver. I think that sometimes whenever you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So I see a lot of the issues in Louisville arts scene and arts community that I think are so easily solvable that can be really fun solutions. And through finding these solutions, we can also create amazing art at the same time. So I see an arts culture across Louisville that's very heavily siloed, and there's not a lot of cross-pollination between different artistic disciplines. And so I aim to, in my practice, break down some of those silos so that we can start working together and collaborating, that we can have a mix between music and photography, that we can have mixes between videographers and people who do whatever it is, flower arrangement, whatever it might be. But socially and as arts communities, I noticed that we're very much siloed. But whenever we work together, we can create amazing things. I mean, just in the last year, we muralized one of my photographs on the side of a building downtown, and that was, it's a mix between the project management and the two different types of visual arts, photography and mural arts, all for public benefit too. That was a privately funded endeavor. And then another privately funded endeavor, at 21C, we had the Little Mercies, which is a collaboration between myself and Dr. Tyler Taylor from the Louisville Orchestra, and we could provide this audio spatial experience for people that was a gift, and it was art in public space, which is really important to me as well. I think that this work should be accessible to anybody who cares to see it.
It sounds to me like, John, that your mission to fuse different art forms is already happening. You're making that happen. Thank you very much. I want to talk more about your personal experience. Some of the things that you've covered, we mentioned the natural disasters, January 6th, we talked about that. Have you ever been moved to where you had to set down the camera for a second and said, okay, this is getting a little bit too personal. This is making my job too hard to perform?
I think there have been times where I've been so amazed by what I've seen that I would forget to take a photograph. And January 6th was one of those times too. When we talk about all the ways that we wish we could have shot it differently, there are times that I wish that I had actually just taken a photo instead of having it hanging down, having my camera hanging down by my waist, because I was looking at something that was just so out of this world amazing. And I, relatively untrained, and I don't think I hadn't necessarily had the muscle memory to know that if you see something amazing, you should be photographing it as well. But there are oftentimes, scenes that are so reverent or they're so personal that I don't necessarily want to share it with the rest of the world, that I just want it to be between me and it and have control over those fleeting moments.
If there's a young photographer out there, or maybe mom and dad who said, I think my son, my daughter has an eye for this, what would you recommend? How do they nurture a potential talent?
I think that you should encourage anyone in your life that has a knack for photography to take as many photographs as they possibly can of whatever interests them, wherever it might be. I think that the key to finally taking good photographs is to take thousands of very bad ones. And
I've done that.
Yeah, we all, and I still take bad photographs, every single day. I just don't necessarily share them. So,
Well said.
and I think that's part of the art too, is making sure that, you're putting your best work out there, because, a bad photograph and an edit of good photos can really diminish the entire batch. But yeah, I think that photographing things that matter to you, I think that practicing, observing, going for a walk, and we all do it. We all, every day, driving down the street, there are moments where you go out of autopilot and you realize, oh my goodness, I can see just past my peripherals, and like the sky is so blue, those clouds don't even look real. and the way the light is reflecting off of. I mean, that's what a lot of photography is the art of observing and then deciding how you want to capture these observations.
You with the trained eye. So you love Louisville, I love Louisville, and I think visually we have a lot to offer. So what is one of your favorite locations to photograph here in Louisville? Maybe you could name a couple for us, John.
Yeah, so when I was parking before I came in, there's the clock tower over at City Hall, which I think I've probably photographed thousands of times just from my time photographing in Jefferson Square Park across the road. I always made sure that that was kind of an anchor for a lot of my photographs, that just this beautiful sense of place. The way that the light hits it has always been amazing to me. And then I would say either Shippingport Island or the Falls of the Ohio State Park. Even though the Falls of the Ohio State Park is technically in Clarksville, the fossil bed itself is still Kentucky.
Okay.
So got you on a technicality there.
You did, because I was a little confused.
But yeah, those are, when I used to work full-time straight jobs, one of the ways in which I would express myself was I would go out and I would photograph birds on Shippingport Island, and then the last part of the evening I would watch the sunset and photograph over there. And so, I mean, those are without a doubt my two most visited places to go and photograph.
So for those who are watching now and they want to see more of your work, do you have a studio? Do you ever have an exhibition, John? How can they see more of John Cherry's work?
Well, they can see my website, johnpcherry.com. Same thing as my Instagram, is at johnpcherry. I don't have any exhibitions up right now, but I'm working on several projects that I'm hoping to debut by the end of the year, and hoping to maybe exhibit in France later on this year too, if anybody's in France, in Perpignan. But yeah, I mean, I'm always posting new projects and sharing new work, and I love to share my work and get people's feedback.
All right, your bucket list. All right, what do you want to photograph? Has there ever been a maybe an event, a happening that you said, I wish I were there?
Mm-hmm. I would say, you know what I really want to do? I really want to photograph in space. I really want to.
Wow.
I really want to do like reporting in space, like either on the International Space Station or one of those commercial trips. I feel like that would really put so much in the context for me. A long time ago, my father was the first person to really expose me to photography, and he was a photographer whenever he was younger. And he was also fascinated by space, and he used to work for a company that sent payloads up with the shuttle program whenever it was still in operation. And I always wondered what it would be like to fly with one of those payloads and to experience all of that. So I think that's it, the final frontier.
All right.
Yeah.
I really appreciate your art. Like I said, and you'll notice this, when you look at John's photography, you will feel what perhaps he was seeing. So John, again, I know I've said it a couple times during this interview, thank you for deciding to live here in Louisville. You really enhance the art scene, and I wish you continued success. I don't think you're going to have any trouble, but I wish you continued success.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Mr. John Cherry. Of course, it is Black History Month, and we have an emphasis on African American art and how it affects the American art scene.